For those that don't know me, my name is Lisa Rawls, and I am a partner within KPMG. I'm part of our advisory practice within Risk Services, and I lead our GRC Technology Service Network. Before I get started and while folks are joining, I did have a few quick announcements. First and foremost, we are recording the session. Super excited about that. So we'll be sending it out so you can hear the great tips that are going to be shared again. And then also during the conversation, we would absolutely love to hear from all of you. So where you're putting in the chat from where everyone's from, feel free to go ahead and pose some questions in there. We do have some pre-planned questions, but we also can go off script. So happy to take your questions, keep those coming. The team here is going to keep me honest and star some for me. So if we don't get to your questions, which is totally fine, we are hosting a KPMG Get to Know Our Network of Women, our Know group, right after the event. So maybe we can cover some of the questions during that too. There will be a link put into the chat for you to go to that session afterwards if you would like to join. So now, hopefully we've allowed enough time for folks to join. Again, and I'm super excited to have you all here today. We are going to be talking about how you can uplift others and yourself. Four women, including myself, are going to share our advice, and this is sponsored by KPMG. We are honored to be a partner of Fairygodboss. For those of you that do not know all about Fairygodboss, it is the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairygodboss for career connections, jobs, community advice, and those hard to find intel about how companies treat women, and virtual events like this. So super excited that KPMG is co-sponsoring this one with Fairygodboss, and I'm thrilled to have three of my fellow KPMG leaders and partners, Denise, Sophia, and Heather, join me today for this fabulous conversation. I'm going to turn it over to them to do a quick intro of yourself and your role at KPMG. I guess I didn't say where I'm from. I'm based in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area. And I guess maybe if you could add that too, just so that folks understand where everybody's from. So Denise, I will start with you.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm excited to be here. And Denise Hester, I'm a partner in our CIO advisory practice. And one of the roles I have is a client service delivery partner. So I spend a lot of time helping clients with their IT asset management processes and tools. And so that's one thing that I do within KPMG. And the second, which I enjoy, is being a people leader within CIO advisory. So responsible for, recruiting, learning, and development of our team. And the final role that I will talk about is being a lead partner for one of our strategic accounts within Houston. So I'm from Houston, so I got that in as well. And, everyone talks about, and I love all the great things I get to do at KPMG, but I'm also a proud mother of three wonderful boys.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Sophia, can you give your intro next?
Yeah. Hi. Nice to meet everybody. My name's Sophia Boutlier. I'm a tax partner at KPMG. I started my career at a law firm at Baker McKenzie, and then I was actually in industry for about 10 years. Have had a great time in my career. I joined KPMG 7 years ago, and I currently lead as the major market leader for tax in San Francisco. And I work mostly with high-tech biotech companies in developing their international tax strategy. And as Denise, similar to Denise, I'm a mother and I have a 10-year-old daughter.
Awesome. And where are you based again?
I'm based in San Francisco.
Awesome. Well, Heather, let's pass it over to you. Another San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. So similar to Sophia, I'm calling in from the Bay Area here as well, and I'm an audit partner with the practice. I'm actually the National Technology Assurance Leader. So it just means that I lead a team of professionals that focus on IT risk and control, as well as attestation for software as a service or banking systems or healthcare systems as well. And more recently, I led that team, the movement of that team from the audit practice from the advisory practice into the audit practice. So we've been a little over a year in that transition as well. And similar to Denise and Sophia and Lisa, we all have other roles within the firm. And so I also have a client service role where I serve as a lead partner for several technology companies that we deliver large SOC attestation work as well. And then I'm also a mother of three teenage sons, I should say. Excited to be here.
Yep, fun stuff. Well, I am thrilled for the conversation today. I know that I'm going to get some insights. I hope that we all share some insights with folks as we spend the next 55 minutes together. Just a reminder that we are going to be taking some questions throughout. So if you do have any questions, put it in the chat there. And why don't we head on over to our first question? And Denise, if you don't mind, I will start this one with you. How has your day-to-day changed since you went into a leadership role at KPMG? And what is your overall approach to work?
Sure. I will say the biggest change has been around, not so much in the day-to-day delivery and execution of my projects and engagements, more working through my teams to get a lot more done, to be honest with you, leaning on them a lot. And I will also say that I spend a lot more time having kind of different conversations with my clients as well. So now it's more about, what should we be thinking about? What should we look forward to, the what next, less about maybe the tactical things that they're doing. So that's the biggest change. In terms of my approach, I think, as a partner here, you get involved in your client delivery, but we all talked about the number of roles that we play. So I have approached my work a lot more being, I will say, protective of my calendar. And so having to make sure that I block time to actually do the strategic thinking that I need to do around some of the initiatives that I'm involved in, and being a lot more strategic about planning my week. So where's the best way to make use of my time? So that would be my approach. I think a little shift from before. I wasn't as protective of my calendar. I feel like I have to be effective right now.
That's a fabulous tip. And I know for me, even when we went into COVID and then, felt like we were working all the time, the calendar protection became even more and more critical as we had to, evolve to a new way of working. Sophia, how about for you? How has your day-to-day changed since you went into a leadership role?
Yeah, I think similar to what Denise is saying, I think being in a leadership role means for most of your career, you've always been on top of projects and delivery and making sure things get prioritized correctly, that you're issue spotting correctly and you're solving problems and figuring things out. But as a leader within the practice, I think what's really changed is making sure that the team develops, that we're really developing the team, making sure that we're recruiting and retaining the team, keeping them happy in terms of wellness and just being satisfied with their jobs, and making sure that we're really developing that next generation of leaders. And we're just much more conscious about that as we think about, especially in this post-COVID world, how to make sure that we're having high engagement, people feel satisfied with the work that they're doing, that they are getting the development and training that they need, and also just feeling like they belong as part of the team and feeling like we're all getting things done together. So part of that, I think, is just making KPMG a great place where people want to build their careers for the long term. In terms of how I approach it, I would think that one thing that I really try to do, and it's hard because we're all juggling with many hats, is really showing people how to balance it all, right? I think as I've grown up in my career, there have always been really wonderful women leaders that I've been able to grow up under, but I see and get to ask them, how do they do it all? And I try to make sure that I'm sharing that with my team, even if it's little things like, how we get dinner on the table every night. So I try to be really conscious about sharing with the team that, I do have a life outside of work, and we all try to have to find our balance.
Awesome. Love it. And Heather, how about for you? How has your day-to-day changed since you went into a leadership position?
Yeah, it's hard to remember when I went into the leadership because I've been in a wide variety of roles throughout my career. I think the main thing that I think about as I take on new responsibilities is really thinking about the skills that allowed me to be successful in the prior role are not always the same skills that allow me to be successful in my current role. And so I think that's something that's a learning, is that whenever I take on new responsibility, I am thinking about what are those skills and how am I using them from a firm perspective to motivate my team, to set the right strategic agenda as well with the team. And in thinking about, being a visible leader, I think with the firm, we have amazing women on this call. They're all leaders, and it means a lot to our team and to the professionals that we lead, that there are people that are out there that are like them, that are balancing, as everybody covered today, about that balance and being able to really serve in leadership and not necessarily opt out of it because of all of the other things that we have going on. So for me, it's always something that, one, I wanted to be in leadership. Two, I always aspired to have the behavior, culture, and attitude of the team. And everything that we say means so much more. It carries so much weight. And so I think you just have to think about it in the context of how do we motivate our team and what kind of activities do we do to ensure that we're really helping each of them reach their full potential as well. And so, and then I think similar to what everybody, there is balance. And I think the COVID environment was one that, brought it to the forefront as to how do we segment the work that we have, and when we're working or when we're, focused on our family or having fun or doing other things like that. So just really recognizing that as well, that to bring our best selves to work, we have to focus on being our best selves personally as well.
Yeah, that's so true. You have to do what you're passionate about, and then making sure that you're leading others and really leading by example. And I know I've seen you in action doing that, Heather, and I think that's a great thing too. I want to move on to the second question. What is your number one piece of advice for other women who are moving into or want to move into a leadership role? And for that, Sophia, would you mind starting us off?
Yeah, I think one of the things is sometimes you're going to find in your career being asked to do things where you wonder, like, can I really take on this project? And I think stretch projects are such great opportunities for you to take on new responsibilities, to meet new people within your organization, and to really try different skill sets and build different skill sets. So I would suggest to really be confident in taking on stretch projects and believe in the people that have asked you to take on some, engagement or responsibility that you kind of question whether or not you're the right person for it. I think you really need to trust the leaders in your organization that they saw something in you and have confidence when you take that on. And then, just make sure that you're doing what you can to kind of build those relationships throughout that opportunity. Because I think it's really through the stretch projects that I've had in my career that I've really grown myself, but also just learned so much from the opportunity and met new people and more of senior leadership. So I think being willing and vocal about wanting to take on new and challenging opportunities is where you can really reach your fullest potential in terms of seeing what you can accomplish.
That's terrific advice. And I know some of those stretch projects at times are a little scary and intimidating. But to your point, often you're asked to do it because somebody saw something in you. So have that confidence. Use the team supporting you to make sure that you're going to be successful. So great stuff. Denise, do you have any one piece of advice for folks that are moving into a leadership position?
Yeah, I will say if you're moving in or want to be in a leadership position, I think is part of what Sophia had mentioned. And I was happy to hear when Heather said, I knew I wanted to be a leader. I think sometimes we don't let people know that, we want to take on additional responsibilities and we want to be in leadership roles. So I think communicating that to your manager, to people who are in leadership roles and have influence in the organization is important. Because I know a little bit of where I would, if I had to go back, I was doing great work, heads down, thinking, yes, working hard. And people are going to know that, yes, I'm doing this because I want to get promoted. But it doesn't happen that way. Like, you should be very vocal about the fact that, you are interested in taking on more responsibilities. And I echo what Sophia said in terms of taking stretch roles, because that may be where your next opportunity comes. So that would be my tidbit of advice.
I love that. And I earlier in my career actually did that. I created a placemat of kind of the capabilities that were needed for me kind of 2 roles out. And I color coded them, things I'd done and things that I needed to do. And some of those things that I personally had done before, it was like I did all I could in that. I'm not gonna be able to contribute more. So I've done it, but I don't have the capacity to continue to do it. So then that gave me the capacity to do these other things. And I now reflect back, I did share that with my sponsors, mentors, or people leaders. And I think that certainly helped. And I now see folks that I lead that aren't as vocal about doing that. I kind of give them the tool, hey, use something like this, and see if they'll be able to do that, so that we know, because you do need to be vocal about that.
I love that you color coordinate.
Yeah, I'm like rock star from the very beginning.
Yeah. But Lisa, I do want to pull on that string just a little bit, is that sometimes I feel like as women, folks ask us like what role we want or what do we want? And we're super hesitant to actually say. And so I think the thing that what I understood from your comment is like, you have to actually say, you and Denise are like, you have to say that you want more. You have to say, I'm looking for more, because I think that sometimes, there could be some biases that come into that in our organizations that may say, well, they don't want to do it because, they just had children, or, something that could, impact that. And I think back to when I first had my kids and someone was like, are you coming back to work? And I'm like, I'm on number 3, right. If I wasn't coming back, like after number 1, that would have been, but like, once I figured out how to do it with 2 and now 3, it's like, of course I'm coming back. And that makes me who I am. So just making sure you're vocal and saying that, I think is super important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the biases, as well as just, people aren't mind readers. So they don't know unless you articulate it. And I think we have a question later about some vocalization type stuff. But just, it is really important to let folks know what you're interested in, and don't be afraid. So, all right. This next question, Heather, I'm going to start with you. As you grow your career, how do you ensure that you're lifting other women up?
Yeah, I think this is super important. And I guess one of my objectives as a leader is to help my team reach their full potential, both the men and women in the team. And so I'm constantly thinking about, what are we offering from a talent perspective, training and other aspects to help them, or even experience. And so with our firm, we offer those experiences to people, which would be getting on the right engagement, getting the right industry, getting the right skill sets as part of that. So I'm constantly thinking about, are we doing the right things? I think as a leader, I have to reinforce that with my team and make sure that we're all thinking about the idea that our goal is to help our professionals reach their potential. And I do it personally through just individual mentorship. My calendar is open. And so, folks jump on my calendar. Sometimes it's maybe not the best time. So I do, if I have to push it back, but I always take those meetings just so that I can understand, somebody was, is, courageous enough to ask for a meeting and put it on my calendar. Like, I will take the meeting with them and talk to them about it. And I do note that, there are folks that do want to have periodic mentoring sessions with me as well. I would say the thing is that as you're looking for a mentor, think about what skills you are. So not in all instances am I the best mentor on all areas, just because I'm a little bit further removed from some of the folks that, are looking for some of my time as well. So, individually focusing on those mentoring relationships, and then broader encouraging that in others as well.
Yeah, and Heather, I'll give you another compliment. I remember when we
You're so nice to me. I love you, Lisa.
Well, I remember when we launched, so I helped launch our Women of Risk community, and that's all about empowering and advancing women in the risk profession. I was out in the Bay Area, and I said, Heather, I want to do a networking breakfast, will you come? And so you came in early to the office, and you gave your time to help connect with the women in the Bay Area as we were getting that off the ground. So, I mean, I think that's just another thing, your time is valuable. We talked about, protecting your calendar, but that is something that I know I prioritize too, is making sure that we are giving the time to connect with other women and uplift them. So, Sophia, how about you? What do you do to help uplift women around you?
Yeah, I mean, I think us in particular on this panel this morning are really lucky because we are a KPMG, and I think there's so much focus and attention for us to have a culture where we are trying to promote women in leadership, which I think is fantastic. So we are always encouraged to have, mentoring, sponsorship, making sure that we are accessible. And that informal mentoring always happens. But I do think that what's important too is just making sure that we are purposeful in our assignments and the team, that where we give women opportunities to have, interesting new clients, hot topic issues or whatever it may be. So I try to be really conscious about staffing projects and client engagement so that we can make sure that we have women having that opportunity. And then the other thing I do is I do host a lot of kind of networking lunches, both in small groups, individual context, but just trying to make sure that we're checking in and having conversations about how women are doing, whether they are early in their career and trying to think about their career trajectory as well as their life path, right? And those that are in transition where they're planning their weddings, having their first children. So I have done a lot of small group discussions as well, just to check in and make sure that we're all sharing tips and tricks and ensuring that people feel supported and can see a path of how to make everything work and be super successful while being able to balance the challenges and different changes and transitions through life.
Awesome. I'll give another plug for our Get to Know KPMG's Network of Women after this session, because that is another great business resource group within KPMG that really is focused on uplifting and connecting women. So again, there's directions for that in the chat. The next question before I head over to any questions that have come in from the audience, Denise, I'm going to start with you, and I'm interested in what has been the role of a mentor or sponsor in your career?
Yeah, so I've had both, and I think you need both. And honestly, the mentors and sponsors are the reason why I am a partner within KPMG. Throughout my career, I have had mentors, as Heather mentioned, for kind of different phases of my career, and so. Helping me with career advice. Should I take this opportunity? Does it align with, what we kind of talked about, where I want to head, those type of things. And then, even when we talk about some of the work-life balance stuff, kind of bouncing things off of them, how did you manage this? And getting that feedback has been instrumental to me. And from a sponsorship perspective, certainly, having people speak up for me when I wasn't in the room. And so tapping me for roles and putting their, political capital on the line so that I can get those opportunities, supporting, me being a partner within the firm, have been ways that, I've used a mentor and sponsor. And to Heather's point, you try to pay that forward as well.
Awesome. Heather, how about for you? Role of mentorships and sponsorship in your career?
Yeah, I think it's clear from everyone's comments just that we do focus a lot as a firm on mentorship, and that's super important to who we are. I think that for my personal development, as I've progressed through my career, like I've observed capabilities in other people. Like if someone has great relationships with clients, like I will ask for a meeting and just try to understand, what they do and how they do it. And so I think that as you're progressing in your career at whatever level, there's someone who has some skills that you admire. And like, that's a great opportunity to have coffee, have lunch, just chat and talk about what it is that they're doing. Not all of that has to be a formal, will you be my mentor? Because sometimes that puts a little bit more pressure on the system when it's a formal mentoring relationship. And for formal, it's like I have expectations when I mentor people that they come to the meeting pretty prepared as to what do they want to talk to me about so that we can make the most of our time together. And I do the same with my mentors as well. And then I think about sponsorship, and sponsorship is really about the idea of, is there someone that's in the room, when there are opportunities that they're your champion in the room. And I just know, like I think about my first kind of big role, which was becoming a managing partner in that role. And I know specifically like who was my sponsor in that, because they had reached out and said, hey, if you want this, you need to probably let people know, that you're willing to move, that you're willing to take this on. And so they really prompted me, and it was based off of a mentoring relationship that they then became a sponsor. And I've tried to do the same thing for my team, as well as making sure that, that I'm sponsoring them and challenging them as well. And sometimes I think that we talked a little bit about it, but at some point we, sometimes as women, we may decline an opportunity because we feel like it's not right fit, it's not the right time, it's not the right location. And I would say don't opt out of it just because you don't like the definition of the role. Because often I think the thing, and I know everyone on the call, is there are times where you take on more responsibility and you get to redefine the role itself. And so there's, maybe it's 50% is required and 50% is the way that you view it. And so I think that's something that's pretty important, is don't opt out because of your perception about it. And if you say, well, I'll be number two, I'll be the number two, it's like, well, then you're still kind of living by somebody else's rules. So pick number one, pick the number one spot so that you can redefine the rules so that they work for you.
Yeah. Love that. Kind of ties to Sophia talking about those stretch projects. Don't count yourself out. So we did have a question come in around, ties nicely to mentorship. And it's, how do you choose a mentor that can help you grow, that is also honest with you regarding areas that you need to strengthen? So has anybody experienced that? Want to share thoughts around that?
Yeah, I can chime in first, because one of the things that I wanted to point out too, that is a good kind of attribute to have in a mentor, is someone that is going to be able to give you that hard feedback. And in terms of, how do you find a mentor? I think Heather had mentioned the fact, like, what are the skills and things that you're trying to get, and you see those in others, and just, asking that person, this is an area that I admire or I appreciate about you. And most of the time, they're not going to tell you no. It may not be a formal relationship. It may just be you touch point with them, periodically for that particular task. But one of my mentors, and I loved her for this, is she definitely gave me the hard feedback. A couple of things she said that that were very important was, Denise, all your mentors don't need to look like you. You actually need to broaden your mentors and make sure that they're not all female. You need a broad perspective. So that was helpful. And she said, you don't take, constructive feedback very well. So let's talk about that. So and that was good to learn early on in my career, because I was wondering, why would people not, they keep just telling me I'm doing great. Well, because you didn't want to hear the hard stuff. So you absolutely need to also, you can say that to your mentors, right? Just like, listen, I want constructive feedback. I don't want to know that I'm doing everything well. I want our relationship to be about my growth, and I'm happy to receive it. So that's just kind of my response to that question.
And it's so key when you get that feedback, because I feel like I got it as well. So that, and I guess I like to be right, apparently. Like, who doesn't? But like, you're right. But I think just being open, and I remember early in my career getting feedback, and I was kind of like, I thought I was awesome. What do like, it was really hard. But then to figure out that those who gave me that feedback, like, we only give feedback to those that we think can reach like greater potential, and we know will listen. And so you really have to figure out, and I had to learn the same way you did, Denise, is to be able to figure out how to receive that hard feedback and not, not internalize it too much, but recognize what it is and then take action on it as well. And so I think, Lisa, I love the comment that you had about here are the skills that I need to be successful. Here are the ones I have, and here are the ones I need to develop. And I would just take it one step further of thinking about that circle of buy-in of who needs to know that you have those skills. And it's not always coming to go like, I have this plate of skills. It's about how are you demonstrating them in the interaction, and being very intentional about that as well.
Yeah, totally agree. There's one question that I think kind of ties to what you're answering there, Heather. It was around, do sponsors have to be, or should they be in the same part of the organization as you? And from what I've seen is, no, you need to make sure that it's broad. And I think, Denise, you hit on that too. So you want to make sure that folks across the organization are aware. And then again, you're using your voice, but in a natural way, so they see your skills in action and what you can accomplish. So. All right, well, we'll go back to our questions here, and then we'll hit some more from the audience a little bit later. I want to talk about KPMG culture. I love our culture personally. Denise, I'm going to start with you. What is your favorite aspect of KPMG's culture, and how does KPMG help you succeed kind of leveraging our culture?
Yeah, so I'm like you, I love the KPMG culture. I mean, it's very, people centric, people focused. And for me personally, I definitely like the fact that we, work to be an inclusive culture, and we're championing diversity. And I think for me to have a client who came to visit our Houston office, he saw our team in the room. We were, kind of presenting something to him, and his comment back was, Denise, I really, really appreciate the diversity on your team. And it's a different experience when I work for KPMG. So yes, it's good to know that inside these walls, right, that we're doing this, but to have a client kind of validate that was like, yeah, I definitely love our KPMG culture. It's like a family to me. And in terms of, how has the firm helped me? I think in that same vein, right? And I think someone had talked about it on this panel about the number of different opportunities, program development and leadership development opportunities we have for women, and also for our other underrepresented talent within the firm. So those things have helped me as well as others on my team to develop. And we certainly are a culture of continued learning. And so the professional development we get as part of our lake house and our which is our training facility is also something that I take advantage of.
Love it. Yeah, I know the first time I stepped into KPMG Lake House, it was the immersion experience, the pride. It was fabulous. Sophia, how about you? Thoughts on KPMG culture and how KPMG has helped you succeed?
Yeah, I've been at several different places in my career. I've been at a law firm. I've been at very, very large multinationals. I can't agree more with the areas of focus that Denise just highlighted in terms of where KPMG has, a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion. But one of the things that I feel just in my day to day, I feel like the culture is so distinct, is it is just such a collaborative and supportive culture. I think in my career, I've always known, do what's right for the organization that you're working for, right? Follow the North Star and you can't go wrong. But one of the things, as I have joined the firm, was to really build out the team and the practice here in the area that I focus on. And I just felt an overwhelming amount of support of ideas that I had that I wanted to do to take to market. And the firm would say, yes, absolutely, that sounds great. Let us support you with the people and the resources that you need. And it just feels good when you could do that and see growth in the practice, see your accomplishments, and then feel appreciated for those contributions. I think that is from just a career perspective, something that's really important, to feel like you are supported and feel appreciated for your contributions on a regular basis. And I think KPMG does that in this very, very seamless way, where it's just good for the firm, good for the professionals that we have in our careers. So I think that just has been really fun, and it makes time absolutely fly in terms of working with our teams and building, the firm together with our partners and the teams that we work with.
Love it, love it, love it. Let's move on to the next question around what people, resources, and tools do you rely on to attain work-life balance? And Heather, I want to start with you. I know you have quite a busy life with the 4 teenage boys at home and leading a tremendous team.
Right. Yeah, I think that, I live on my calendar, and so I think that's a starting point for it. And, my husband and I send calendar invites to each other. So I know it sounds like weird, but that's how we let each other know that we might have a scheduling conflict of who's out of town. Like, he's out of town this week, so I'm on kid detail, meaning I have to bring my boys to school, which is not in my day because I often start on East Coast hours, even though I'm on the West Coast. So totally not planned. I also, with my calendar, I carve out specific times so that I can get up and have a break and eat lunch. And if I didn't do that, I literally would not eat. at all. But with 3 growing boys, they eat your lunch. So today I had to go down during a break and make my own lunch. I was very upset because I said, do not eat my lunch. And they did. I saw it. I saw the, the box in the trash or whatever. I was like, oh, you ate my lunch. I needed it today because my husband's out of town. But I also, I let my teams know when I'm available, and we do a lot through Microsoft Teams, which is a tremendous tool for us. I don't monitor my people. I just want to say that none of the leaders have time to monitor our people. So I know I often see that as a dialogue, but I don't. What I would say is my team monitors me, however. So the moment my bubble goes green, like I get pinged about 15 times. So I think it works the other way around, that they are monitoring me. But I think you have to put some boundaries on your schedule, and you have to make sure that you're meeting that, and you have some time for yourself. And Denise, I loved you covered strategic thinking. As a leader, you absolutely have to build in time to think about what you're doing and whether it's the right things. And we also talk about it in the return on your time, is like, are you spending time? Are you a leader of leaders? Are you getting everybody else going? Are you giving them what they need to be successful? You absolutely cannot do that if you don't have strategic time set across. And then, as leaders, I have an executive assistant who's amazing. And I think she challenges me as well, because I give up time on my calendar when she's blocked it. And so I'm like my worst enemy. And she reminds me of that, which is thankful, just to be like, here are the boundaries that, like the time that we've talked about, like prep time for something like this, is like making sure that those are on my calendar. So, having that, if you don't have an EA, then making sure that I think it's really important that we often schedule time for meetings and interactions, but we don't spend so much time planning for the interaction to make the most of it. So I would challenge everybody to think about that and making sure you're prepared for the meetings that you're going to, because if you're wanting to demonstrate some of those skills, you'll show so much better if you show up and you're prepared for the meeting, and you think about what your contribution is going to be in that meeting as well.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Sophia, how about you? What people, tools, resources do you use to help with work-life balance, or I sometimes like to call it work-life integration?
Yeah, it really is integration. I mean, I think, as we've mentioned in different ways, I think having a strong team around you to support in everything that you're doing is absolutely critical. And I think that goes both at work as well as home. So I think at work, I think part of it is just making sure that we're hyper organized, because again, we don't have unlimited time. And I think I always ask myself, what is the most efficient way I can get this done? And where do I need to prioritize my day so that I'm spending my day for the highest and best use for the firm? But I also empower my people to manage up. And I think that is so valuable for people to know that if we have something that we need to get out and I haven't responded yet, absolutely come follow up with me. I empower you to come chase me and pester me, because, there's 1,000 things that need to get done. And, we just need to make sure that everybody has ownership over what needs to get done for our clients. So feeling like you can empower your team to manage you, I think, is absolutely important as well. And then I think at home, part of it is just having the peace of mind that my child is happy and growing. So making sure that she's in a great school with a strong community, caring teachers, and then having whatever other support that is. And for me, thankfully, I have the space. I can have a live-in au pair, and it is phenomenal because it's just great flexibility. And I'm happy to always talk about what having an au pair is like. But it's really great for my daughter as well, because it's like having an older cousin around. So it just alleviates a lot of stress to be able to have an extra support network at home as well.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Denise, the next question, I'm going to start with you. How have you benefited from the skills experiences you've gained during your career journey, and or if you took any pivots, have you benefited from those?
Yeah, so I definitely took a career pivot for sure, because I started my career in our internal audit business, and then moved over to, something a little bit more technology focused, which, we call CIO advisory. And the benefit of that is, one, I have a broad network of people within the firm, because I used to work in our internal audit business. Now I'm doing, work in CIOA. And the other piece of that, I think, has opened the doors for conversations in my client, because I guess by background, I'm an accountant. I'm a licensed CPA. And, now I'm speaking technology language. So when the CFO needs some discussion on why this, buying this technology make business sense, I'm happy to help the CIO articulate that vision to them. So I get brought in a lot just to talk that through. What should I say? How can I, tune the messaging so that it's going to make sense to get funding for that. So that's been very beneficial, just to kind of have, both of those experiences, and the fact that I actually, got an opportunity to do a career pivot, honestly, into something that, would not be kind of a natural progression, to go from being an accountant more to now a technology advisor within, the same company. And so I definitely have benefited from that in the firm. And just the fact that you can do that here is another good thing about KPMG.
Yeah, I reflect back. So I've been with KPMG for 18 years, and I do feel like I've done pivots and tried new things, and it's all been within the great culture family of KPMG, but I've been challenged in different ways and learned from each of them. Heather, you mentioned the big shift from advisory into audit. I know you've had some other career pivots. Interested in thoughts from you on, kind of stories around the career pivot and what you've gained from that.
Yeah, such a great question. I think often we come to the table and we think that a career journey is linear and you just keep going up and up and up. And I think there are just different times it doesn't go that way. And so, I think about, if I think about my career jumps, it's like in our practice, I became a regional leader, and that was a jump for me from partner. But then I always had my sights set on being a managing partner in a market, because it's like the main face of KPMG in the community. You build these relationships. And so I thought about that. And then I moved into a market development role. And sometimes I think the other part is when you get a new responsibility, like you may have the credentials and you may be developing them as well. And so you have to figure out whether some of the roles are developmental roles or if they're ones that you got because you had proven out a certain skill set as well. And so I was in that role for about 6.5 years. And then it was like time to go back to the practice. And so I think, Lisa, I came back to the advisory practice out of the growth and market practice. And when I came back, I didn't come into a role. I just came back because I wanted to serve clients and I wanted to grow the market. And so, some may have looked at that as like, I like to look at it as a lateral because I don't like to go backwards, but it was, and for us, like serving our clients is most important. And so for me, it was more of a lateral role where I was going to be relevant in my content area, like Denise, like in technology assurance and serve accounts and really just grow the market. And that's also when I moved out to San Francisco. And so I tried to kind of keep my head down and just serve and grow. And then I started going up and became, got leadership roles within that. And then eventually evolved to the role I have now. So I would just say that sometimes when we pivot, it's about getting some other skills that would be valuable to, whatever your aspiration is, and that it's really not always linear. So don't be, disappointed, dejected if it doesn't go, you don't get this big role, then this next big role, and you keep going. It's like, there's a lot of ways to be successful. And sometimes you have to think about how do you round out your skills and how do you get the relevant skills, and maybe a lateral move or a different role is one where you're going to get the skills that you need to eventually leapfrog into the next role. And so don't be hesitant about that. I think it's super important.
Great advice. I was talking with a mentor, and, they shared with me the role that they had recently been asked to play wasn't even a role that was necessarily within the firm, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It didn't exist. I mean, KPMG goes through different transformations and realignments. We see that at our clients. So I think you're spot on. You can't say, hey, I'm going to go here, here, here. It's what are the type of experiences and things you want to lead, and then what are the skill sets that you need to have to be able to be successful at that role. So all great.
I actually got that same advice from a mentor. It's like, don't necessarily just chase roles, chase the experience, find out what does it take to be, a successful leader within the organization, obviously successful leader within KPMG, and try to make decisions on what you're going to do based on that. Because to your point, maybe the role you're aspiring to be may not be there in 4 years when you're ready. So I think that's kind of a good way to think about it. So I love the way Heather, I was going to chime in and say that. And it sounds like you got the same advice, Lisa.
Yeah. When I was thinking, Denise, don't worry, because like you have a CPA and technology, we'll put you in tech assurance. I'm like, yes.
All right, my next role is coming.
I say, Heather, how's your next role?
Yeah, Lisa, like I'll take everybody.
Yep. All right. Well, this next question, it's actually a tradition that Fairygodboss has of asking panelists this question. So Fairygodboss has observed that women often do not feel comfortable about bragging or taking ownership of all the amazing things that they achieve. So the request is, can you share with the attendees here an accomplishment, be it professional or personal or professional, that you are most proud of? So I love this question. So Denise,
I was thinking, Lisa, are you going to share yours? Should we?
I will go last.
Okay, so I'll go quick because mine is, every time I get asked this question, it's probably one of my proudest moments at KPMG as well. But it was receiving the Advisory Leadership by Example Core Value Award from Lynn Dowdy, our former CEO. So I will brag about that until I'm in my grave. I really appreciated that because I admired her so much. So
that's an awesome one. Sophia?
For me, I think it's really just looking back at what the practice looked like 7 years ago when I joined, and now seeing the growth in terms of the additional partners we have, the team that we've built, the promotions that we've had of the people on our team. I think it's really just fun and exciting, and I'm really happy with it. I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish.
Love it. And Heather?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I probably have like on my email, like a little folder for everything that I'm proud of. So I can go back when I'm having a bad day and remember that. Like you need something to remind you that you're, if you have a bad day, that it's not all bad. I think one of the ones that I'm super proud of is I'm a National Athena Award recipient. So I used to serve on the board, the International Board of Athena International. And the mission is to support, honor, and develop women leaders. So I did a lot of work in advancing leadership programs with them earlier in my career, and it's just something I'm proud of. And then I want to say personally, like I'm super sporty, and I was like the sectional, I captained the tennis team 2 sectionals to win, and then we all moved up into a higher rating. So super excited about that because now the season's starting again, and I'm excited to play tennis when I'm not doing everything else.
Love it. So for me, I leaned into KPMG's value of courage and launched the Women of Risk community. And within about 2 years, we expanded and we are now in 40 different countries. We have membership. It's an internal and external organization or community that we lead. We have 2,000 plus members. And part of that then positioned me, I was put forward for a consulting magazine women leader, and in 2019 I won that. So
well deserved. So
it was many of those things coming together. So I am very proud of that accomplishment. So all right, we'll take a few more questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap it with a lightning round. So we got about 10 minutes left. So Heather, you made a point early on around different roles and that there are different skill sets that you need to pull on. Can you expand upon that? And how do you quickly assess what skill sets are necessary, even if soft skills for some of those additional roles?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that if you want to take on more responsibility, you have to have a line of sight on what the skills are that are needed for that next role. So what a great question. For us, we have very well-defined job descriptions that help tell our professionals like what's expected at the next level. Not every organization has that. And so one way to get an understanding about what those skills are to, interview people that are in that next level, in that next role, and ask them, what characteristics, what competencies are important that you demonstrate in order to get there. And I think it's different by, organization as far as what skills you may need, but, communication is always one, like you have to be a clear communicator. often presentation skills is another one, in that, the more that you're in leadership, the more that you're on stage, whether it's on this stage or on, an actual in front of people. So being comfortable with that. So Toastmasters is a great way to figure out whether, how you can present in front of others. But then there's also, mentorship in your, who are you as a leader, and how do you mentor and develop your team or give feedback? So the higher you go, the more that you're expected to make sure that you're giving the feedback so that your team can actually develop as part of that as well. And so there's definitely a lot of, like, leadership is a lot of soft skills in being able to aspire on that. But I think similar to Lisa, like, do a list of what you think the skills are, validate that list with other people and say, hey, these are the skills I think I need. What do you think about this list? And they'll say, well, you also need these 3 things, or technical competency could be one, or business acumen could be another, like understanding your industry, understanding the company, understanding the economic conditions, like all of that are things that you may need to bring into the role that you want to attain. But really asking others within the organization will give you a good sense of what are those specific skills.
Yeah, I love that. I know when I meet with my mentors and my sponsors, I ask some of those questions because they are in different roles around just what are the additional skill sets that they have that, I would need to acquire myself or work on, et cetera. So all great stuff. The next one that came in is, I think this was actually a great one. Once you're in a leadership position, how do you get people to view you in that new role, especially when you were a peer of theirs, or a non-leadership role before? So has anybody experienced that, and any tips that you would give around that?
I think when you get into a leadership role, it's because you've really been acting as a leader before getting that role officially. I think you have shown leadership skills throughout the practice. So hopefully it's not a big transition, but I think I understand especially maybe not at, a firm, but in industry, getting a different title really does put you in a new role, new responsibilities, and just making sure that you can transition well. I think one of the things is really, providing transparency to the team about what your objectives are and how you want to, lead the team, what your values are as a leader, I think can help kind of that shift and transition.
I love that.
I think we experience it here because we have at different levels, we do promotions. And so I think it is one where sometimes it is a little bit more challenging when you move into the role, but similar, like Sophia, just the idea that you're already demonstrating some of the skills is something that you should take pride in. And it will take time for others to recognize you in the role. And so you have to kind of be a little bit patient and do the things that you believe you should be doing in the role so that they do see it. But it does take time, especially if you were peers at one point, now you're in that role. You might be in situations where you have access to information that you may or may not be able to share. You might be able, might have to understand the organization and their strategy and communicate it, and maybe hear pushback that you heard when you were a peer, but now you're a leader. So, there's a whole bunch of things of just being sensitive to the idea that, it may take some people time to see you in that role, and be patient and be confident, and you don't need to go like, don't you know who I am? Do you know that I'm in charge now? Like, you don't need to do any of that. You just have to stay the course on those leadership skills that Sophia mentioned, is that you got there for a reason, and be confident with that, and then be patient that it will take some people time to view you in that. But you're doing all the right things because you got there and you received that promotion.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move into our lightning round. And I love this one. And I actually think, Heather, when we did that panel, we talked about this one. What advice would you give your younger self? And I will start. My advice to my younger self is, Lisa, take the risks, but know that it's a journey, and you got to stop and smell the flowers on that journey. So that's what I would give to myself. Denise, you want to go next?
Sure. I would tell my younger self, I would say, Denise, strive for progress, not perfection, and that you will deserve to be in every room that you get the opportunity to sit in. So use your voice because your perspective will be needed.
Here, here.
I love that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Sophia.
Mine is to dream big, right? I think making sure that you have big goals and that you work towards them through progress and identifying what you need, but dream big first. I think that's what I would tell myself.
Awesome. And Heather?
Yeah, so mine would be to be patient. I think that I've always been eager to kind of, demonstrate capabilities, advance, and I had someone who gave me some great advice is like when you're a new leader and you're stepping into the role and you're trying to make an impact. And I'm an Air Force veteran, so that's why this statement will make sense, is that you can't charge the hill when your troops are putting on their boots. So, like, you don't have their shoes on, they're not tied, you can't charge the hill. So it was like, okay, so that was a great reminder of a mentor of mine who just said, you need to be a little bit more patient. And I love that, Denise, the progress aspect of advancing that as well. So just being patient.
Awesome. So many good tips. I love the dreaming big. I love the being patient. You are in that room for a reason. So use that voice. We've talked and shared a lot about that. So thank you so much, fellow colleagues, Denise, Sophia, and Heather. And thank you, audience, for joining us. We got some additional questions that came in. Sorry, we were not able to get to all of them. As I mentioned, we are hosting Get to Know KPMG's network of women following this. So I'll see if we can get some of these questions into there as part of that networking opportunity. As a reminder, we'll be sending out a recording of today's event along with resources about KPMG and opportunities that we have. So in the meantime, be sure to check out KPMG's profile and the jobs that we have open on Fairygodboss. And we'd also love to get some feedback from you all. We want to know how we can improve for future sessions. So there is, if you head to the type form tab on the right side of your screen, you can complete a survey, and we would absolutely love to hear your results or see the results of that. So again, big thanks to my fellow colleagues, Sophia, Heather, and Denise. I hope that everyone enjoyed our conversation. I know I got a lot of additional tips and tricks that I'm going to bring back to my own personal calendar and actions, as well as to my team, and share with those. So thank you all again for joining us today. And we look forward to connecting with you at the next session. So have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody. We'll speak soon.